I seriously find it very hard to believe that the facts I'm about to recount for you are actually true. But sadly, they are. And even more sadly, most media in this country completely ignore them as the country continues a slide into economic decline. Chris Bowen is the Climate and Energy Minister for our energy-rich nation. And he has just spent a couple of days in Dubai trying to throw away our wealth. He wants to destroy our economic and security advantage. This is national vandalism. This is a government doing the opposite of what it's supposed to do. Instead of making Australia stronger, Labor is actively working to make us weaker. Let me explain this undeniable reality. Australia has enviable fossil fuel resources, as you know. We've got enough to fuel the world for the foreseeable future. We are one of the world's leading coal exporters and one of the world's leading gas exporters. But Bowen told the COP28 Climate Talk Fest that these industries should be shut down. Our own energy minister wants to get rid of two of our top three export industries, our energy exports, our fossil fuel exports.
If we are to keep 1.5 degrees alive, fossil fuels has no ongoing role to play in our energy systems. And I speak as the Climate and Energy Minister of one of the world's largest fossil fuel exporters.
Just extraordinary, isn't it? No ongoing role for fossil fuels. A government intent on vandalising its own nation's major exports. And when you hear his explanation of why this should be done, it shows just how nutty this stuff is.
We embrace that fact and acknowledge it because we also live in the Pacific and we are not going to see our brothers and sisters inundated and their countries swallowed by the seas.
Swallowed by the seas. This was not Greta Thunberg speaking. This was your Climate and Energy Minister at a global climate conference. The bloke is in charge of this stuff in Australia. Bowen actually believes that what we do will change global climate, which it can't possibly do, of course, unless all other countries, especially the 50 countries that are bigger than us, do the same thing at the same time. And none of them will, of course. And even then, what will happen to the climate? No one knows, because there's so many natural variables in play. But Bowen, he displays a kind of behind the news or Extinction Rebellion interpretation of science, and he pretends that what we do in Australia will stop Pacific nations going under the rising oceans. What an embarrassment. Now, even the COP28 United Nations Climate Gabfest didn't back this push against fossil fuels. That's how far off the planet Bowen is. But don't worry, well, actually, you should worry greatly, because it's still his dream. It's still Labor's goal. The world is getting dumber by the minute, and our politicians seem to be leading the charge. But it gets worse, of course, because Australia is so unbelievably fortunate. We're so blessed with energy resources that we're also a world leader in the one energy resource that provides reliable electricity without carbon emissions and without being reliant on weather. And that is, of course, uranium. But Bowen refused to sign up to the global push to triple the amount of nuclear energy, saying, last week he said this: when I meet with counterparts, even those who are nuclear countries, they say, if I had your renewables, your renewable potential, I wouldn't go down the nuclear road. It's a pipe dream, wrapped in a fantasy, accompanied by illusion, said Bowen. And I don't have time for distractions. Distractions, hey? The one reliable form of energy without emissions. What a troglodyte. His dream is an Australia that won't use our coal, won't use our gas, and won't use our uranium. We won't use our natural bounty. We'll just use our wind and sunshine when they're available. And get this, we'll buy all the equipment that's required for this from China, where they're making sure they've got abundant coal-fired and nuclear power to manufacture this stuff for us and make a mozza. And China just happens to be our strategic rival in the region, a strategic threat in the region. If they do actually wish us harm, they do not need to lift a finger, do they? They just need to make sure they don't interrupt us while we're destroying ourselves. And if now and then you think that you might hear people laughing in Beijing, it's because our capitulation truly is hilarious. For instance, cop this one. It's been revealed that Melbourne City Council has paid $170,000 of ratepayers' money over recent years to abate carbon emissions. And more than $42,000 of that went to the country that produces more than a quarter of the world's emissions and where they're still increasing their emissions. Yeah, you guessed it. Communist China. We are actually paying China, funding their energy projects while we sacrifice ourselves, destroying our energy system. We hurt ourselves and pay to make China stronger. This is unforgivable national self-harm. Unless the coalition takes a strong and clear stand against this stuff and offers an alternative, we are heading for extremely difficult decades ahead.